All right, we are live. Good morning. This is attorney Vince Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. And I'm joined with my lovely co-host, Miss Cassandra Woodard. Good morning, Cassandra. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good.
Good. So, we had a guest lined up from California today, a victim of CPS, and we are unable to contact him. We hope everything's all right with him. But we're unable to contact. So today, what I planned on doing, and we did discuss this before we started the show today, is taking questions from the audience. And if you have questions, go ahead and post them. And then we're going to talk about some current events, things in the news, things people are talking about. And, we can get your opinion, Miss Woodard, and, I can give you mine. How does that sound?
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. And then here is Miss Deidre Payne, number one fan. Good morning, Mr. Davis and Cassandra. Where's Miss G? Well, Miss G is not feeling well tonight. Apparently, she's ill, and I don't want to go into her private medical information, but she's really not doing well this morning. So we hope she feels better, and Godspeed to her. And I think that her adult son, is you know uh, uh, at home helping her. And I suggested, they go to the doctor. So hopefully, she will be all right, and she will join us tomorrow at 9:30. But that's all I can tell you, um, Deirdre, where she is this morning. If you have her private number, go ahead and text her. Okay. All right. Somebody said, was that you, Cassandra? You wanted to talk about the mass shootings in
No,
Miss?
nothing.
Oh,
No,
was that
I
was
haven't
that was
mass
that
shooting.
great? Was that
Yeah,
great?
yeah. I haven't heard about mass shootings lately. Oh, there was one in Mississippi, I guess. I didn't know that. I was talking about all the spills that were having toxic spills and mini Chernobyls around the world, around the United States.
What's the last spill that you heard about?
The last spill I heard about wasn't a derailing; it was a turnover on the highway in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, I think it was. It was a diesel, and it was pouring out. I mean, barreling out like orange and black smoke. It was horrible.
Right.
It was just that smoke was coming out of it like it was toxic. And then, yeah, there's two others that before that were train derailments. It's pretty bad.
I wonder what's happening that we would have those types of spills occurring all over the country. You think it's some type of terrorist act or sabotage or what?
I'm not sure. That's really hard to say, but the way they're going about it and talking about it on the media, they're like barely talking about it, and they're really just taking it not as serious as they're saying it is. Like certain people are saying it's like a mini Chernobyl, and I think it was Ohio where that one was,
Hmm.
and it's that bad, and they're not really saying much about it. And I've been hearing just very little about it, and it's just weird to me.
Have you ever experienced anything like that?
No,
No.
but I was watching the videos online and on TV, and it they there was a I don't know if you watch Tucker Carlson. Not a lot of people like Tucker Carlson.
It's interesting. I do watch him every once in a while. I watch all the different channels to try to get all the different perspectives. So I watch CNN, I watch MSNBC, I watch Fox News, and on Fox, one of the more interesting commentators on there, I think, is Tucker Carlson.
Oh
He's
yeah,
he's kind of an interesting guy who I think he likes to be controversial. Everybody likes controversy, but he has some interesting thoughts. I mean, you can tell that he's really thought about these things. Now, whether I agree with him or not, that's a whole nother thing, but he's
yeah.
given this a lot of thought. And I watch there's another even more conservative station now, news channel. I forget what it's called, and I sometimes I watch that. Yeah, but from MSNBC to the conservative right, I watch it all,
Yeah.
just to get different perspectives. And what's really interesting is, you know, we can look at a car accident. You and I could be standing on the corner, um, you on one corner, me on the other, and we see this car accident happen. And when the police come to investigate, just from our different perspectives, you and I will have divergently different renditions of what happened,
Yeah.
but it was the same accident. Isn't that interesting? Because, we're
Yeah.
looking at it from different corners.
Sides of the story,
Right.
there's always two sides of the story.
Right. And
Or is
so,
mine the truth?
right. So then there's always, the MSNBC version, the Fox version, the CNN version, so it's always interesting. And I think that really depends upon our experiences as human beings. We all have different experiences, and I think, that affects everything that we see and how we look at things. Deidre says, "Oh no, hopefully no more dentist appointment." No, Deidre, I don't think it had to do with the dentist. I think there's something else. Yeah. She says, "Okay, I'll text her." Lots of mass shootings, Michigan the other day and Mississippi yesterday. You know, what do you think about mass shootings and gun control?
Mass shootings, I know there's the statistics of there's at least one mass shooting in the United States every day.
At least one?
At least one
Wow.
in every day in the United States. They don't say them all, but there is. You could go on a website and it shows you every day in every state that there was a mass shooting in that day. Sometimes there's two or three in one state or two or three in a different state, but there's at least one every day in the United States. I'm not against guns and I'm not against gun control. I'm against the government. I was talking to my parents the other day and I was all like, you know what? I feel like it's not how everything's going in the world right now. People are losing their minds. Like people aren't, when they buy guns, a lot of them aren't mentally ill. And then they go through some stuff in their life, like trauma or psychiatric like breaks, and then they go and get their gun and start killing people. It's not, it's people killing people, not guns killing people. That's how I feel about
You know, I would agree with you, but however, here's something. I want you to think for a moment that your children are at the movie theater and they're shot and killed by a mass shooting. Okay. So you're affected differently. How do you feel about guns now?
it. I still feel the same about guns.
Okay.
That's the wrong place at the wrong time kind of thing. And I'd have to deal with it because I've had a kid, like, to tell you the truth, my kid was going to a school that got a year later, a mass shooter came to their school and shot up that whole school. A year prior to that, my kid was going to that school.
Wow.
Yeah. It was in Rancho de Jema, Northern California. It's a small, small school, like literally 4 trailers. That's it. Portable trailers for the school. And a teacher took all the kids. Nobody got hurt, thank God, but there was a mass shooting. He tried to go and kill all those kids at that. But she got them in one trailer and saved all their lives. But a year prior to that, my kid was going to that school. So it was just like really hit close to home with that one because I was just like thinking, what if I was still there, you know?
Right. Susan Carter, watching us on Facebook, is asking a CPS question. How does my daughter-in-law request files for her active CPS case? Her son have their 366.26 hearing on March 2nd. She has been asking her attorney for months and months, and he does absolutely nothing. We are convinced he is not on our side. Okay. Susan, that's a very good question. I get that question a lot from people calling me. And if you are having a 366.26 hearing, that means you're in California. Okay, because that's the only, I mean, they have those hearings all over the United States, but they only call it a 366.26 hearing in California. So, if you're in California, what you do is you take your government issued ID, you go to the clerk's office of the juvenile court, and you ask for a copy of your file. Now, here's something that happens frequently. The clerk's office tells you no. Get it from your lawyer, get it from the social worker, blah, blah, blah. Now, in my humble opinion, that's not legal. So sometimes when I'm in the courthouse, it's been COVID, so I'm not there a lot, but sometimes I'm in the courthouse and I've told someone to go get a copy of their file or go get some minute orders and stuff, and they come back and say the clerk won't tell me and won't give it to me. And then I then accompany them, go to the window, and ask for the copies. And 99% of the time, they give it to me. Now, why that is, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm an attorney. There is one county down here in Southern California, and I've had people tell me this all over the country. I went and I asked for a copy of the file. Now, I'm on the case. I'm the attorney of record, and they refused me. And I ended up in a discussion with a supervisor in the clerk's office. And I said, what you're doing is illegal. You're preventing my client and me from representing, um, you know, this person in a court proceeding. And the response was, well, why don't you get it from the prior attorney? And my response to that was, well, we asked him and he has not given it to us. Hearing's coming up. I've even been in court on the day of the hearing and they tell me no. And then I, politely and nicely say, you know what? If you don't give me this copies of this file, I'm going to have to bring a lawsuit. And surprisingly, that works because they know they're supposed to be giving you a copy of the file. I mean, you're the client, right? So you're supposed to have a copy of the file. Recently I asked a clerk who wouldn't give me copies of minute orders. I was new on the case, and her opinion was I should have the minute orders. I'm like, how do I get copies of a minute order on a case what I'm brand new to? And there was no answer to that. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go talk to the judge about this case. Have the case called, talk to the judge, and tell the judge I can't represent this person because you won't give me copies of the minute orders. As I was walking down the hall, it was like, Mr. Davis, we got the copies for you. And I actually get the feeling that they don't want to make copies for you because it's too much work.
Yeah, they don't want to do that.
Or it's too expensive. I don't know if you know this, but in California, every minute order is supposed to be mailed to you. Did you know that?
No, it didn't.
Yeah, it's supposed to be mailed to you. And the funny thing in LA County, years ago in LA County, they used to go out of their way to make sure copies of minute orders were mailed. And this is before it was computerized. Now that it's computerized, they don't really want to do it. They say, oh, it's online. Your attorney can get it online. And it's true if you're a private attorney, a court-appointed attorney, but private attorneys sometimes have difficulties getting approved to get copies of your file. San Bernardino used to give me copies of files, such as where your case is. And now I've been told that in some cases by my office, we do have access to your file, but in a lot of cases we don't. And they straight out tell you, oh, you can't have access because you're a private attorney.
Wow.
And I think there's kind of a due process and equal protection kind of lawsuit there because I'm being treated different from a court-appointed attorney, who's really a private attorney working for the government.
Mm-hmm.
So why am I treated differently? And in a lot of cases, it's really important. You talk to a client and say, hey, you say, hey, what's going on in the case? I don't know. Right? They really don't know. So how are you going to defend them? You got to go get a copy of the file. If you don't get a copy of the file, What are you going to do? Can't represent them. So getting back to the mailing. So now they don't mail. Did you know that? Have you ever received a minute order in your case mailed to you?
No.
Right. And and I don't think you ever will from San Bernardino. But there's a
Yeah.
law that says that. It actually says you're supposed to be mailed a copy of the minute order.
Yeah.
And as your attorney, I've never received a copy of the minute order because some counties go, oh, well, we sent it to the attorney. We didn't send it to the client. Okay. I'll let it slide. No big deal. But the law says you're actually supposed to get a copy of it. A few months ago, I was in a court. I won't say the county. I was in a court. And it was the first hearing, and I went in and I asked for a copy of the detention report and the petition. Okay, we were there for the detention hearing, and I was told we don't give out copies anymore. You should have it in your email. Now, that's the procedure for court-appointed attorneys, but not private attorneys, because they didn't know that I was even going to be representing the parent on this case. So how could they email it to me? They didn't email it to the client, which is kind of interesting, the
Mhm.
one being accused of everything. So I asked for a copy. I was talked about negatively when I tried to ask for a physical copy of the petition and the detention report. I had to jump through a few hoops to even get it mailed to me. Now I'm there for the hearing, right? Judge is asking me why I'm not ready to go. I don't even have the paperwork yet, Judge. I don't know what they're accusing my client of.
Wow.
So, I don't know. I just don't know. Maybe it's just to save money. To mail out a minute order to you from every hearing can be very expensive for the courthouse to do
Yeah.
because there's some labor involved. They have to make a copy of it. Okay. They have to stuff it in an envelope. They have to address it. They got to look up your address. Got to, put a stamp on it or metered mail. Then
Mhm.
somebody has to take it down to the post office or the mailbox and drop it in the box.
And usually that's like 2 or 3 different people that got to do all that.
Right. And multiply that by, 200 cases that day. Now, I say 200 because I'm thinking of your county. There's not, you guys only have 3 or 4 courtrooms. But what if you have
Yeah.
a county like LA, you got 20 some courtrooms?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Right. I mean, that's a lot of labor, right? And I remember when they first went to the system during COVID in LA County, I'd ask for copies of reports or whatever. Mr. Davis, it's in the portal. That's great, Judge. I don't have access to the portal. Well, yes, you do. In the judge's meeting, we talked about that. Private attorneys on the case will have access to the portal. You wouldn't believe how long that took to get that straightened out.
Wow.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
To this day, I don't have access to every case that I'm on. Now, it's getting better, don't get me wrong, but it's still, like you don't have access, especially in your county. Some cases I do have access to, some cases I don't have access to. And why? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But here's the funny thing. The law, the actual law, doesn't talk about portal access. It talks about mailing people stuff.
Yeah.
Recently I was in a case where somebody said, well, Davis's client received notice of the hearing and the report. Because I was arguing, I didn't receive anything. And they said the client. And I said, my response was, oh, okay. If that's true, I'm sure they filed a proof of service under penalty of perjury that notice was given to my client. Can I see that, Your Honor? Well, we don't have a proof of service. then they didn't serve anything unless they're going to declare under penalty of perjury and file a proof of service that they did. I don't want to sound mean, but a few weeks ago, someone in the court proceeding said, "Well, your client found out about blah 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 at the last court hearing," which I wasn't at. I was new to the case, and I said, "Oh, it was the judge." I said, "Oh, Your Honor, you were here. You heard that? You saw that?" Knowing that that judge wasn't there yet. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I wasn't there, but that's what I heard. Like, really? You're going to say my client was officially noticed, you don't have a proof of service, and someone told you that my client was told something? Right? I mean, if you were in criminal court, you'd be laughed out of the courtroom.
Hearsay. No.
It's hearsay. It is hearsay. And who knows if the person who told the judge that was even there? Then you have what they call multiple hearsay, totem
Mhm.
pole hearsay. So, anyway, Susan, I got off track. I'm sorry, but I told you how to do it. I hope that helps you. Here's Christopher. Christopher has a long question. I have a question, sir. How is an individual I know told he or she has no freedom of speech to talk to anyone publicly about the CPS case? How else is it possible to offer a stipulation 19 months after the allegations have occurred, when statute of limitations for abuse in Kentucky, which includes neglected and abused allegations on a child 1-year-old, sir? I personally tried to be there all I can for this individual, and a lot seems wrong with Grayson County's Kentucky CPS case, civil and constitutional. Okay, Christopher, I have bad news for you. Freedom of speech is not what you think it is. It doesn't mean that you can talk about things freely. You thought it did. It doesn't. The government at any time can pass a law to infringe on your freedom of speech, but they have to have a really good reason. Otherwise, you can challenge that law in court. Now, I can tell you in CPS cases, they're confidential, and every state has passed a law that you can't talk about it in terms of mentioning names, stuff like that, right? Or even the fact that they even have a case, unless they give you their permission. So it would be against the law for me to talk about Cassandra Woodard's case, what the reports say, what the children say, what the children's names are, even. Now, true freedom of speech says that I could talk about anything I want, but the government can always limit your rights. There's a famous case in law school, and that is, even though you have freedom of speech, you can't go into a movie theater and start screaming fire if there's no fire, right? So
Mhm.
you can't do something that the public or other people have rights to. Christopher, I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry, freedom of speech is not what you thought it was. Look at my video on YouTube, What is Justice? Because justice isn't what you think it is. All right. RJ Juarez, I did not understand court at all the way they talk. You cannot understand anything. RJ Juarez, you are absolutely 100% correct. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a CPS case, standing right next to my client, having explained what was going to happen. And we walk outside, and the client says, "What just happened?" Like, what happened? Like, what were they talking about? And unfortunately, in court, they're using legal terms. Sometimes, legal abbreviations, you
Called
know,
legal.
right. And and I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes if I'm appearing in front of a judge who doesn't know if I'm qualified or, experienced, I'll use a slang term to let that judge know I know what's up. I mean, I just did it in a case. Um, I referred to the jurisdiction and disposition report as the jurisdispo, you know, and I could tell the judge, like, oh, or I'll call it the JD report, just to let them know I know what's going on,
Yeah.
right? Um, attorneys that aren't familiar with this area of law, if you say that to them, they're like, what are you talking about? A funny thing happened a few months ago, maybe a few weeks ago. Um, I represented a dad in a case in Northern California, and the mom was represented by a public defender, court appointed. And the mom was upset with the court appointed, and the attorney that she hired um, called me. And I had never heard of the attorney, which doesn't mean anything, but I just hadn't heard of the attorney. And she started asking me questions that I immediately knew that she didn't have much experience in this area. So I didn't find it my place to say anything. And come to find out through other cases where she was on, she has about 2 years experience in juvenile dependency work. Nice lady, but not as experienced as you might think. And my client ended up firing me because she told her client, allegedly, that I wasn't experienced in juvenile dependency cases. And
Oh,
I didn't argue with the guy, okay, if you don't if you don't believe that I have a lot of experience, I understand, you know. In the old days, I try to convince him and, but today I just, okay, if that's what you believe, that's what you believe. But people believe stuff. It's hard to
you're lost.
convince them. Yeah. No, it's just hard to convince them otherwise. It's
Yeah.
almost like a futile argument. All right. So Deidre says, Cassandra, I heard you mention yesterday something about your quote unquote son. I thought you only had two daughters.
Oh, I have 3 kids altogether. My 2 girls are with in CPS custody, and my son is with his father. So
How old is your son?
he's 10.
So he's not part of the CPS case.
No,
No. Okay.
they told my son's father that if that he didn't get full custody, they would include him in the CPS case. So my son's father got full custody.
Right. Okay, Deidre, I hope that answers your question. Deidre's listening very carefully. Very carefully. Because I don't remember you saying that. And
I
I don't know. I don't know if I remembered that you had a son or not. I just don't know. Okay. Eva says, I think after some time going to court so often, I know I missed something. Right. You're right. You're right, Eva. And here's RJ Juarez. All of Kern County should go to the juvenile system and go pick it up all day with signs. We only wish, RJ. Susan says, I'm in Solano County. Beautiful area up there, Susan. Okay, Christopher says the parents of the children have been molested while in Kentucky state care, abused and neglected, and evidence and reports made, and still the parents of these children have no medical or any type of record of the incidents happening to their children. Why have they not been giving their children back to their parents, the parents with horrific incidents happening to their children? It's sad in Kentucky what children and very good parents go through. I personally say a hired attorney they should pay for and sue Kentucky just for, and then it cuts off. Christopher, that story I hear probably every day, Saturdays and Sundays included, holidays included. Um, it's not unusual. And yes, they should hire an attorney and perhaps sue to stop that type of conduct. Okay, if you had a CPR station one county and you go to another one, I don't know, Jonathan, I don't know what that means. Do you know, Cassandra?
Maybe he meant to, if you have a CPS, I don't, instead of CPR, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. Deidre says maybe they should just give us our kids back then and quit continuing with all the hearings. Deidre, we only wish. We only wish.
Yeah.
Susan, the social workers are supposed to use their best efforts to locate all relatives. That's true. In the
Yeah.
beginning, my son and daughter-in-law has my name written first on the list for the children to be placed with me. They never called me, not even one time. Therefore, they were placed with my ex and his wife, who just happens to work at DCFS. Imagine that. And Susan, are you surprised? Are you surprised? Come on. Melanie says they make so much money at their multiple bonds per charge. They have enough resources. If not, they could just leave us alone. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. RJ says, yeah, I'm doing them tested clean 3 times and going to parenting classes. Got 8 more to go. Let's see. Then he says, I feel like after I do these things, they're going to ask me to do something else.
Most likely.
RJ, you're catching on, my man. Or ma'am, you're catching on. That's the usual. The usual. You know, it used to be.
Breadcrumbs and false promises.
It used to be once they made the orders, that was it. That was it. And now it's, well, you know, we can add a couple more things for you to keep the kids away from you. Susan says, thank you so much, Mr. Davis. I appreciate the useful information. You're welcome, Susan. Deidre says, watch his video on what is justice, because what you think justice is and what justice is in courts are but the same. Or, Sandra, Deidre, I hope you meant are not the same. They're not the same. Jonathan says, you have a couple kids taken by CPS and you have another one that's been being born. What are the chances of keeping it?
If you're in a different county, different state, even better.
What if you're in the same county, Miss What are the chances of keeping them?
Probably 0%.
It's not quite 0. It's maybe like 5%.
Well, I'd say 2%.
You know, there are many arguments that can be made to keep that child, you know, even though you have another one in custody.
Yeah.
And by the way, that happens a lot. A lot of people don't realize it, but this happens often.
Mm-hmm.
Happens often. And the weird thing is, in some of the cases, you see the parents keeping the newborn, but not getting back the other children. Like, how does that figure out? The other kid's at 10, and the newborn's newborn. Who needs the most protection? The newborn. But if you leave the newborn there, why can't you give the 10-year-old? You know, either you're a danger to kids or you're not.
Yeah.
Deidre corrected herself. Not. Yeah, it's not. Justice is not the same as what you think. Deidre says, Jonathan, sorry to say, but they will take that kid too. And then Melanie says, time to move to a new county.
New state, even better.
You know, be careful with that new county stuff, because sometimes they're able to track you. And here's how they track you. Let's say you have Medicare, right? The social workers have access to that system. So if you went from LA County and you went to, say, San Francisco, you're still going to show up in the system. They're going to call San Francisco and say, hey, go detain that kid.
Yep.
Sometimes San Francisco will start a case. Sometimes a county like LA will say, no, send that kid back to LA. And the kid wasn't even born in LA, never been to LA. I've seen that
Yep.
happen.
That's why I said different state is even better.
Yeah. I guess different country would even be the best.
Yeah.
Now, what if you move out of the county that you live in, another county? What are your chances of keeping it there? Well, that's what Cassandra was just saying. They come a little better, but if they find out about it, you're going to be screwed.
You got Medi-Cal, you get cash aid, you get any
Right.
CalFresh, anything like that. They're gonna find you.
Yeah. Christopher says, yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. You are very intelligent, sir, and informative also. The whole your right of freedom of speech shall not be abridged is false. Rights. Thank you, sir. Christopher, unfortunately, yeah, that freedom of speech does not mean what it says. It means something completely different. But that's what the law is all about. Words having different meanings than the ordinary common sense. Melanie says, don't give them a good reason to come, but since you submitted to them before, they hope you will submit to them again. That's generally true. Lloyd on YouTube says, have you ever included the minors' attorneys and their social workers in the lawsuit? Never included the minors' attorneys, Lloyd. I have included the social workers routinely in the lawsuit. Melanie says, do a home birth and get a social security number and BC later, like when they are 18. It's possible to keep them out of their system so they are truly your minor offspring property and not wards of the court. Melanie, that might work. I'm not sure it'd be the best for the kid, but it might work. Jonathan says, okay, what if you go to another state, have the kids, and then come back and go to a different county from where we used to live in Fresno County and move to Kings County? Well, Fresno and Kings, aren't they right next door to each other?
No, but that comment right there could work. I know somebody who did that.
Yeah, it could work. I'm not saying it would work. I wouldn't say it would work, but it could. But Jonathan, if you were in Fresno, you'd probably want to move to like San Diego or Eureka, or Humboldt. You wouldn't want to go to Kings County. It's too close. Too close. They'll see you in the supermarket or something, or they'll see you at Walmart. Deidre says, you have sorry to say, but it's probably -% that you get to keep that child. Okay, Deidre. And Deidre says, a new country.
Yeah, but I've known somebody who is in California, moved out of California to Tennessee, had the child, okay, after she's already had a case in California and had termination of parental rights of her other kids. She moved to Tennessee, had her new baby, stayed up there for about a year, came back down and moved to the same county, not even a different county, and she kept her children.
They never found out about her?
Nope.
Yeah.
And the thing is, she was on cash aid and all that stuff too.
Really?
So,
well,
yeah. But that was rare. So don't try it and expect me to know what I'm talking about. I've just seen it.
Right. Jonathan Crosby says, yes, if you have a CPS case in one county and you go to a different county, will that help? It might help. No guarantees, Jonathan. No guarantees. The only guarantee that you have is if you go to a different country where they don't even have CPS. Oh, 42 USC 1983. Hello there. How are you, 42? We haven't seen you or heard from you in a long time. What are common claims against caseworkers in a civil rights case? Well, that's a really good question. The most common ones that I've seen throughout my career are, number one, social worker lied under penalty of perjury or lied in a report. That's number one. Number two, social worker would somehow be responsible for or actually did the abuse themselves. abused a child or responsible for the abuse. For example, placed a kid in a foster home where foster dad was a known pedophile. Kid gets molested. Social worker can be sued. The third type of claim is not even it's not a really a 42 USC claim. It's a Fourth Amendment violation. So social worker comes to your home and detains your child without a court order or a warrant. So 42 USC 1983. Those are the three common claims you have against social workers. So I hope that helps. Deidre says, Melanie, sorry to say that they will probably been charged on parent with neglect for not taking the child to the hospital for medical reasons after being born. Deidre, you're right. You're right. And, Deidre, we don't know each other, but you have an awful lot of information. It seems like you may have been involved with a CPS case, or you've done a lot of research. Have you considered being?
Every day.
Huh?
I said she watches our videos every day.
Hey, Deidre, are you interested in being a host for one of my CPS shows? If you are, contact Grace at vincentwdavis.com and share your knowledge with people.
Technical difficulties.
I see that, yeah. Melanie says they can still go to school or homeschool without BC and SS numbers. Social Security, what's BC, Cassandra? Oh, okay. 42 says, busy working my case. Thank you for what you do. 42, I hope you are using the help of an experienced civil rights attorney, because there's nothing like spending hours and hours and hours on a case just to be thrown out. Okay? So think about that. All right, Miss Woodard, we're coming towards the end of the show, and we can sign off. We hope Miss G is doing better. And are you going to be on the show tomorrow morning, Sunday morning at 9:30?
Yeah, I guess so. I
Okay.
hope so.
Well, thank you. Well, everyone have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9:30. Bye-bye, y'all.
Okay.